All right, welcome to Breck to the Future, a podcast about rebuilding the real world. Here we're going to explore the industries that we've ignored. We're going to talk to the builders that are quietly fixing them, and we want to discuss the ideas that are worth betting on. I'm not here to go viral. I'm just here to ask some better questions. I want to spotlight real progress, and more importantly, I want to learn from the people who see what others seem to miss. So, let's get into it. The 2010s gave us really an app for everything, right? Food, rides, friends, even validation. The user experience got way smoother, the cloud got smarter, and for a while, it really felt like we were solving big problems with little taps. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it was really good, but now, a decade, almost 2 decades later, I can't help but wonder, did, we use our brightest minds to build what actually mattered? So, the point of this podcast is to highlight the future, but I feel it's also relevant to give the past decades their flowers, so to speak. So, I want to start here. The consumer tech boom absolutely moved the needle, right? Connectivity suddenly was everywhere, in your pocket, in your cars, even your homes. Payments became seamless. Logistics became way more predictable. The creator economy went mainstream. Entire industries of side hustlers were unlocked with platforms like Uber, Airbnb, Twitch, other streaming opportunities. I mean, how can you discount that? The user experience patterns, they became refined to a point where onboarding to a new app was basically second nature. We've all done it. But even then, in these past decades, we did notice that healthcare and finance and other industries had started to catch up. One medical, plaid, just examples of those that were trying to fall in line with what that decade was offering. And these weren't trivial wins. They did make our lives easier, and they gave us more optionality than we ever had before. But the thing is, we made life easier, but did we really make it better? We solved for speed, we solved for convenience, we solved for impressions, but did we solve housing? What about our food supply and our food systems? What about local manufacturing versus everything that was offshored? What about our water resilience? How about our education? Most of the capital, the talent, and the attention went to optimizing the digital layers, but not building the physical foundations. you know, as one example, in the same decade that we perfected grocery delivery, we also let our farming communities erode. Um, Companies like FarmWise are a great example of what's in the agriculture space that's going to make a lasting impact. Haven't seen that in a while, and that's what we're looking to highlight here. So, and this isn't because the last decade is not because we were lazy or we weren't ambitious, right? Um, it's because the incentives made sense, software scales very fast. The investor class, they chose velocity and an investment horizon that made more sense for them based on everything we saw in the last few decades. Consumer apps are very easy to market and they're very quick to monetize. And so naturally, with the fiduciary responsibilities that they have and looking to make money, the flywheel turned in that direction. But we are kind of now faced with the consequences of that prioritization. We have beautiful apps on our phones, but our supply chains, some would say, are broken. We have endless personalization that we can use and build, but we don't have scalable plans for, energy systems, water, other key infrastructures that we need as a civilization. We have on-demand everything, but we don't have affordable housing for, I'd say, a good chunk of the populace. So what I want to do in this episode is really I'm looking to reframe the conversation. The point of this podcast is not to be anti-tech. This is about pro-prioritization. I'm not here to bash the last decade. I'm just here to ask some questions. And the most important one is, what if we took the same talent, the same capital, and the same speed and pointed it to things that actually mattered and actually moved our civilization forward? Because there are people out there that are doing it, right? And there are those that are in progress and companies that we will look to highlight at some point. I've talked about Icon already. I think what an incredible company and incredible mission of what they're doing, 3D printing houses. 12, a company that's turning CO2 emissions into industrial materials. Charm Industrial, carbon removal through biofuels and other bio oils that they're building. Fervo, a geothermal energy innovation company. Parallel Systems, autonomous freight rail. Just these aren't just cool demos. These are directional shifts. This is what we need to be thinking and where we need to be going. And we need more of that. So to kind of wrap it up, where does this show go from here? In the first episode, I laid out the problem. We've been building the wrong things, in my opinion. In this episode, I want to just reframe the question, what if we aligned and aimed our innovation at the systems that actually are holding civilization together, actually allowing us to take that next step? So from here, Breck to the future is becoming a signal for what's possible out there. And, there's two ways that we're going to move forward together. The first is conversations. I'm going to be looking to bring on founders, builders, domain experts who are working on these frontiers and making progress and challenging the norms. These aren't going to be puff interviews. I want to learn how they think, what they see that others don't, and what it takes to really go up against the current, as there's a lot of innovation here. Secondly, I want to do deep research drops. In future episodes, I want to highlight industries one at a time, education, agriculture, energy, several others. And you know, I want to explain and kind of walk through where we came from, where we currently are at, and where we could be heading. In those episodes, I want to break down the history of that industry, the rot within the industry, but more importantly, the opportunity within the industry, and look to highlight and spotlight those companies that are trying to fix it. So, this podcast, what we will be doing moving forward, it's not just a podcast. Really, it's going to be a body of work. It's going to be a mix of curiosity. I'm looking for clarity, and I'm looking to ask hard questions. So whether you're here for the research, here to learn about the builders, or just have the ambition to think bigger, I'm glad you're here. Because, the best version of the next decade, it's not going to be defined by dopamine hits and speed of things that aren't just important. It's going to be defined by durability. And that's what we're here to build. So, you've been listening to Breck to the Future. If this made you think, please share it. If it made you curious, keep coming back. We will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.